Hello and welcome to the Phoenix Burning Podcast. There is a phase of the Phoenix cycle where it burns and returns to ash, a phase we often overlook in favor of the more inspirational Phoenix rising. However, sometimes we need to burn away the old before we're ready for the new. I am Veronika, an intuitive guide and transformation coach, and in this podcast, I share my audio diary chronicling my burning phase. These recordings are completely raw and unfiltered, often recorded while I walk around outside in nature, and I release them to you in their unedited state in the hopes that you may find comfort, hope, and maybe some inspiration as you go through your burning.
Hello, lovely. Thank you for joining me on my journey. I have so much to share. So much has transpired in the past week. I don't even know if I can share it all in one episode. I have several things I want to share with you too. Starting with the energetics behind some things that I've been doing that you may also want to do as you're following along in your own restoration journey. And then, of course, I want to catch you up. I can't even believe what's transpired. If you're following, if you've listened to my other sessions, you know that two things that I wanted to have clarity on before the end of January was one, where I was going to where I was going to live. I had been considering doing a sabbatical somewhere, and then I had also been looking at moving to Arizona, where one of my sons lives. And then I was being taken back to court by my ex, and so I thought that I may need to stay here and tend to those matters. Regardless of which of those three options panned out, I had committed to 6 months of restoration in whatever locale and in whatever way I could make that happen. So I have an update for you on that. I was also asking my spirit team, the energetic realm, for guidance on finding a healthcare practitioner. And I had shared in one episode about, I thought I may have found one. And so I have an update for you on that. Both of these situations have taken a surprising turn. And I cannot believe that it's only been a week since I last updated you. It's so insane. So today is the day that I'm recording this. It is January 16th, 2023. And yeah, things are transpiring so quickly. And one of the things I wanted to share is that I have really been committed to being very present with what I call my core self, my inner self, being very slow. And if you follow my work, you know that I'm somebody who practices presence and teaches presence. This type of connection with my inner self is on an even deeper level than that. It is, the best way I could probably explain it is if you're in a deep meditative state and you connect with that inner knowing, and everything just sort of like makes sense to you. When everything around you, your mind, your emotions, and everything is calm, and you're just present with your inner knowing, it's taking that sensation and staying connected to it as you are moving through your life. So you're not actually literally in meditation. I have also been deeply committed to listening to my intuition, the energetic realm is what I've been calling it. Sometimes I say spirit team, sometimes I say energetic realm. I'm using those interchangeably. And the reason I'm using it that way is because when I say spirit team, sometimes people get the impression that there are people who have like spirit guides where they see very specific energy embodied in a visual that looks like a person and has a name and is very specific. I personally, I sometimes have spirit guides like that. But the way that I feel, guidance is there is this energetic realm, and I feel different types of energies within that realm. There's source, divine masculine, divine feminine. There's the angelic realm, which feels very different to me, that when the angels come down and speak. There's also spirit guides that are, as I just mentioned, more embodied. And I feel them all differently. I receive different support and messages from each of them. And to me, they are all together. I'm distracted because I'm walking, as I usually am when I record these. And I just looked over, and it's January, so this tree is completely bare. And there is this ginormous nest, probably a hawk nest, that's really just catching my attention. Whenever something in nature catches my attention like that, I pay attention. So usually that's a message that I'm receiving. I usually get it in the form of the actual animal or of feathers. Birds and bird feathers are ways that I personally receive messages. Sometimes other animals, but most often those. But right now, this bird nest is just, I'm really mesmerized by it. So, I'll probably go and look up when I get back. I will look at what the significance of a hawk nest is. But it's very interesting because everything I'm going through right now has to do with motherhood and the home. So when I see a nest, it kind of makes me think of that as well. Whew, it's really sticking with me. It's funny that I saw that as I was talking about the energetic realm. Okay, what was I talking about? So I had been really connected to this. I had been really committed to being connected with my inner knowing, my inner self, my soul, my inner feminine, leading with rest, leading with being held, and really paying attention to the energetic realm and the guidance that I'm being given. And the other thing is that I have really been committed to myself, which I feel like I have been. One thing I noticed that even though I do a lot of self-care, the energy of it somehow, my energy is always outward focused on other things, my kids, my friends, my business. My energy, my attunement is actually not on my core self. And so I've really been focusing on shifting that. And it was interesting how difficult and how uncomfortable it was to do that. The reason I share these things with you, the way that I've really been shifting my energy, is because these past few weeks have been so magical in terms of things coming into my life, things moving forward with ease, opportunities showing up. And, I think there's two things at play. And again, this is why this podcast is an experiment, because I'm sharing what I believe, and then we'll see what actually transpires, right? If my hypothesis, if you will, turn out to be correct. I think there's two things going on. I do think that there are times in our lives where we're switching tracks, right? Our train is moving from one track to the other, and things come to us that support us in that change and in that transition. And so we may feel an abundance of guidance and messages. So that's what I just realized is what I used to believe. What I'm now hypothesizing, and I've certainly heard other people speak on this, is that when you are paying attention, when you are focused on your core self, like I have been, when you are focused and when you understand energetic principles, and you are receiving, and you're paying attention to the energetic realm, and you are receiving. Giving and receiving is something I want to touch on today. And you are receiving on the energetic, in your energy body from the energetic realm. Things do move with ease, and you are constantly provided with guidance and opportunities and things like that. So what I'm speculating, what I'm hypothesizing, is this state of magic that I feel like I'm in right now may in fact simply be a new way of being as I deepen into all these principles that I've been teaching and doing for a while, but I'm now moving into a deeper layer of it. I want to touch briefly on giving and receiving because it's been a huge part of this transition, or not this transition. It's been a huge part of my experience over the past 6 months, which has been very difficult. And it's come up quite a bit with my clients as well, giving and receiving. So many of the people I work with have a block to receiving, which I did as well. And that comes about for different reasons that doesn't feel important right now. So I'll just share briefly that I was living in a way that was quite on the 3D realm, appeared to be and felt very isolated. So I live on the west coast of the U.S. I grew up on the East Coast. My friends, my childhood friends, and many of whom I'm still in touch with, are on the East Coast. Oh, there's another hawk nest. All right. I'm getting hawk nest is my message of the day. My childhood friends were on the East Coast. My extended family is on the East Coast. If you know my story, you know that I'm not particularly close to my family of origin, my mother and my sister and my brother. So, first of all, geographically isolated. One thing I've come to recognize is there's lots of families who are geographically isolated but still remain close contact. So I have not remained in close contact with my extended family, my family of origin or my extended family on the East Coast. And then when I was married, certainly I became very isolated with my husband and my children really being my whole world and not prioritizing my friendships or developing friendships here on the West Coast. So I met my husband and started my family very soon after moving to the West Coast. So physically very isolated. And then also I had the personality of taking on and I'm sharing this because so many people have shared this experience. And so I want you to know that I understand that feeling of being alone from my own lived experience. And I want to share how that's shifted and how it can shift for you as well. So, isolated from my family and then isolated from community or friendships when I was married. So when I left my marriage 7 years ago, I felt very alone, and I did work on then rebuilding my community and developed some new friendships and support system, but it was always challenging. And also, as I was just starting to say, I'm the kind of person who always took on responsibility, perhaps for things I didn't even need to. But I'm the responsible one, right? Which is probably why I ended up with a narcissist. Responsible for my kids, responsible for financial provision, responsible for taking my kids to their doctor's appointments, for homework, for a while for doing management and marketing of my husband at the time's business, at work. But I was the project manager, and I was constantly stepping into roles of being responsible for things. And definitely this feeling of, well, I have to, because I don't have anyone else to do these things for me or with me. And also if I don't do them, they're not going to get done. And probably, quite honestly, looking back, there was probably an element, if I don't do them, they won't get done correctly. right? So there's a lot bundled into that, which I'm not going to get into right now. That's sort of the first phase of the healing process, is really understanding where all those beliefs came from. So I will just share that I started to recognize what was contributing to my sort of overwhelming sense of responsibility and feeling alone, and realizing that I had a block to receiving both emotionally, receiving love, because I did not receive love as an infant or a child emotionally. So I didn't know what that felt like. I still remember the first time I experienced that on an energetic level with a group of people. Anyways, so I had a block to receiving. And so the process was first understanding the different levels of why I was taking on so much responsibility for everything. Why was I doing everything on my own? And if you're listening, I'm sharing that because something I hear a lot, something that I personally felt was, I have to. I don't have a choice. I'm alone. If I don't do this, who's going to do it? I'm curious if you feel that way. Something I've heard so much, something I felt so much. The truth is that we have so much support around us than we know. We are not alone. Literally, we're not, even though we feel like we are. And recently I had a client ask, what is the point of receiving when A, I can do it myself, and B, the other person, if I trust the other person to do it, they're probably going to let me down. What is the point? So right this moment, I'm just going to speak more on sort of the energetic principles of giving and receiving, because again, those concepts that I was just sharing, there's many layers of healing and of understanding what's going on for you, right? And definitely, reach out to me, send me an email, or find a practitioner that can help you with this block around giving and receiving if you have that. If you're somebody that feels like you're all alone. Okay, but I want to share a few things that I've done here that you can also do. So first of all, why do we need to receive? Or why do we need to give? Why can't we just do things on our own? Oh, I feel a soapbox coming up. I just feel so strongly about this. Right now, we have been conditioned in our global community, our global consciousness. We have and are being conditioned. I'm going to pause while this truck goes by. We have been and are being conditioned into individuality. That you are successful if you are doing everything by yourself. It's, capitalism is part of that, but it's, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, be a self-made person, leave the home when you're 18. If you're, be a working parent and maybe even a single working parent and somehow successfully bring in money, be a parent, run a household. We are being told that you are successful if you're able to do all of these things. And it is utter and complete bullshit. Because you are most successful when you are in community, in collaboration. And the reason for that is because we are literally created. Our human bodies are literally designed, evolved. I'm not using that from a designer standpoint. I'm just saying that our system is literally made we are a communal animal. We all have different strengths, different skills, different talents. And when you bring all those skills and talents together, they provide all the aspects that are needed for a successful community, for the survival of all the members of the tribe. And it's really beautiful when you start practicing giving and receiving and being more in community and more in collaboration. Every member is exponentially better. The lives of every member is exponentially better. It's not a case of 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 equals, 10. Each individual, the enhancement that each individual receives is way more than just the addition of that one thing. It's so crazy. And as far as sort of on a larger level, the way that I see this is I always look to nature for examples of things. So when you look to nature, everything is a cycle. We have our water cycle. We have the food cycle. Within our own cells, there's cycles of energy, of how energy is made and released. Everything is a cycle, and everything requires input in order to have output. And the reason we become sick, or the earth becomes sick, or that our foods don't grow, is because there's an imbalance. There's an imbalance either in the input, right? You can overwater a plant, and a plant can die because it has too much water. So there's either an imbalance in the input, or there's an imbalance in the output, right? You're putting out too much. So this is why overgiving, right? There's people who are overgivers, and that's a problem too. Being an overgiver is not a positive trait. So it's that balance. So when you are giving and receiving, that things can be in balance, and when they're in balance, it's like it's a self-sustaining cycle. And everything in that cycle flourishes. So learning how to ask for support in the 3D was something I've been practicing. Establishing connections and community is something I've been practicing for years now. And this past year, what I've deepened more into is asking and noticing help from the energetic realm. And so something that I will do, so this, if you're someone who's following along in your own restoration journey, this is something that you can follow along with, is I will ask for support from the energetic realm, from the spirit team. And I will write it down. So I have a little journal. I like to use a three segment journal. In the first segment, I write down my co-creations, my things I want to manifest, because sometimes I forget, and I like to write it down so I can go back and look at it and see what's transpired. In my middle section, I use it for intentions. So every day, not every day, but most days, I write down an intention, and it might be a general intention, or it might be an intention for that day. And then I'll also write down gratitude, and I write down gratitude for all kinds of things, but I also look back at what I've asked for help with and make sure I really acknowledge and give gratitude for the help that I've received. And that's really important. So I write down my gratitude, my intentions, and then I have questions for spirit or questions for team. And I'll write down things that I'm asking for help with. And it seems like the more specific I am, the more immediate the support is, or at least perhaps I just notice it because it's specific, right? And then in my third section of my notebook, I just use for journaling. So I don't journal every day, but if I have a lot of emotions or a lot of thoughts that I need to get out, then I'll journal in the third section. But I like to keep my intentions and questions for spirit and gratitude in its own section. So it's not a long journal entry. This is just what works for me, right? But that way I can just quickly I can kind of go through my journal and see what my intentions have been, or see what my questions for spirit have been, and see how they've come to pass, which is really cool because it reinforces that this process works. Oh, I was talking about giving and receiving. So I'll just briefly say that in doing this process, both asking for support in 3D and this process of asking for support to the energetic realm and paying attention to it, I have felt so deeply supported these past 6 months have been brutal in terms of physical health, emotional pain, life transitions. And I have felt, for somebody who has felt alone most of my life, I have just been blown away by how supported I have felt, both in the 3D and energetically, things showing up, support coming in out of the blue. And it's just really reinforced for me how we're never alone. And if you feel that you are alone, know that you're not. And it's your own kind of shield that you've put up around yourself, probably for very good reason, for protection and for safety. And that shield, unfortunately, also has the negative side effect that you're unable to literally see through that shield and see that you are not alone. So if you feel like you're alone, cut a little window in your shield and look around and just start paying attention to all the ways that you're supported. And you can do it in really small ways. In fact, I encourage you, if you feel this way, to do it in small ways, because sometimes what happens is we ask for support either, to our higher power, to our energetic team, or even in 3D when we're in crisis. And then it's such a big ask. And then we may feel like we're not getting it in the way that we wanted it. And then we're like, see, I'm all alone again. But it's because your system needs to learn how to receive on a regular basis. And it really works best if you titrate it. So if you start learning to ask for support in small ways and start receiving it in small ways, your system can adjust to it and be like, oh, this works. Oh, let me do this some more. Oh, this is cool. And then it's like a snowball effect where it grows and grows and grows. And then when you're in crisis, like I have been the past 3 months, all of a sudden it's like support is everywhere. In fact, there were times where I was kind of overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good now. So yeah, just cut a window into your shield and practice. And if this resonates with you in your journal, you can also note down, ways you're going to ask for support, and you can start by asking for support in the 3D. Just start paying attention to how you can ask for support. And the last thing I want to talk about this before I move on to updates about what's going on in my crazy life is to remember, if you're somebody who's asking for support and it's new to you and it feels uncomfortable, you are providing a great gift to the other person, especially if you can think about, what are things that I don't like doing, I'm not good at doing, I feel like I don't know how to do? Who in my life has a skill set or a strength in that area? People really enjoy being recognized for their skills and their gifts, and they enjoy giving in a way that they are good at. It makes them feel seen and acknowledged and needed. So if you can reach out to people and ask them to support you in ways that are their gift, that cycle I talked about earlier, right? That's you actually putting into the cycle. You're putting an acknowledgement of somebody's gifts, and then you're receiving those gifts. And then assuming you're also giving your gifts to others, right? Most people who are in my space, if you're in my space, you're probably an overgiver. So I don't talk about giving as much, but it's equally important. And if you're somebody who feels like there's not enough for me to give, there's not enough money, there's not enough time, there's not enough of me, that's another area to start practicing giving. And you'll notice how the more you give, the more you get back. It's so cliche, but it's really true. And I have some really cool examples of things that I have given without much thought, and then I received back like the exact same thing. Kind of in ways I wasn't expecting, and it kind of blows me away. So asking for support, you're actually putting into that giving and receiving cycle. That's so important for all of our well-being. Okay, so I was talking about writing in my journal and writing my intentions and also my requests for Spirit Team. And this morning I was going through the past few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks of my journal and noticing ways that I have received what I've requested. One of the things that I requested was a healing practitioner. I used that word very intentionally. I first wrote doctor and then I scratched it out. A healing practitioner to support me in returning to restore my full health. So something, I'm not reading it right now, but it was very close to that. A healing practitioner to support me in restoring my full health. So I didn't say healing the symptoms I'm having right now or anything like that. So the last time I spoke with you, I believe I shared that I was really listening to or trying to understand guidance around finding a healing practitioner. And I had reached out to a naturopathic doctor. So I had been speaking at that time about taking action and following through and showing the universe or your energetic team that you really mean what you say. And I had if you hadn't listened to that episode, I had run into some stumbling blocks. And I was feeling that I should wait and not hire this particular naturopath. Although I felt very much in alignment with him. I'd spoken to him in the past. I knew his work. I really felt that he could help me, and he was a good fit for what I was dealing with. One of the things I pay attention to is when in my life things come into my field. So this particular doctor came into my field back in 2021, and I have grown and shifted a lot in that time period. And I suspect he would have been a good fit for me back in 2021. Well, he had decided to make room for me despite him being full. And I had tried to then send him payment and the link didn't work. This was after a series of things that I felt like I kept getting blocked when trying to hire this person. And I also kept feeling in my gut to wait. Kept being told, just wait. Like, what am I waiting for? I've been sick for a long time. I'm going to rephrase that. I'm letting go of the notion that I'm sick. I've been having symptoms. My body's been speaking to me for a long time, and I need help in hearing what my body is saying. But I kept being told to wait. So when the payment didn't go through, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait. And a series of things happened. I'm going to come back to my health thing because that part is still kind of blowing me away. A series of things happened. When I was picking up my son from college in December for his winter break, I visited a community in Arizona where he goes to school. It's a co-housing community. I don't know if you're familiar with co-housing. But I fell in love with this community. And if you listen to my earlier episode where I share what I'm looking for as I go through this restoration journey, the number one thing is that I'm leading with feeling held. So you can go back and listen to that episode if you missed it. Leading with feeling held. In other words, what I've just been talking about in this episode about being overly responsible for everything, I'm releasing that for right now. There's some positive aspects of that. It is part of my personality that I want to honor. However, as part of this restoration process, I could see the importance of releasing that aspect for right now and really allow myself to follow the lead of others and not be the one doing everything, right? This is a time of being and less doing. This particular community has everything that's important to me in terms of my values in a community and in a place to live. And it's been around for 20 years, has structure, and it has basically everything that I say that I want for this restoration journey. And I had put my name on the waiting list. The only way that you get into this community is if somebody moves out. The last person who moved in was on the waiting list for 2 years. So I put my name on the waiting list and walked away. This was in December of 2022. So less than a month ago, December 20th. Put my name on the waiting list thinking, maybe a year or 2 or 3 down the road, I'll have the opportunity to live there. And I may or may not, may or may not choose to, depending on what's happening at that time in my life, right? Well, last weekend, I received a notice that an opportunity for a rental, which is perfect for me, a 2-bedroom rental, opened up in this community. And there's a number of synchronicities that occurred that allowed me to be the one to get into that space. It completely blew my mind that just the whole process was mind-blowing. I was on my computer on a Saturday, which I don't normally work on a Saturday. And right now I'm working very little. So I'm not on my computer very much. I was on my computer when the email came through. I happened to have my email opened and I saw the email and responded within 10 minutes of receiving it. And because I was the first person to respond, I was the first person given consideration. And it is allowing me to reduce my expenses significantly, which you may know is one of my goals for this restoration time. My 2 priorities are my physical health and my financial health. And the opening is for February. So I am suddenly moving. And part of the overwhelming support that I'm receiving is that a friend of mine is a professional organizer, and she doesn't live near me, but she's coming out for 10 days to support me in cleaning and organizing and downsizing my home and helping me and packing and then moving to the next state over, and then helping me unpack. Huge gift. And because my physical health is my energy is so low right now, my physical health is so poor right now, I don't even know how I would have pulled off this move without that support. I'm sure I would have found a way, right? But so unbelievably grateful for that. So I'm suddenly moving into the exact living situation that I want, that I was asking for. And there's a number of things about the specific home I'm moving into and the way the owner is leaving it for me, that is also supporting the things that I said that I wanted. It's just crazy to me. I mean, it's not crazy, but it's so interesting. So that's happening. So following up on where am I living? So now I'm moving. And then the other thing that happened is I had met I don't know what to call him. I use the word healer. I don't know that he uses that word, and I don't quite like that word because it implies that someone's doing something to you, and our healing is really within ourselves and up to us, right? But back in November, I had met a man who was a healer. I met him at a work convention and felt immediately drawn to him and felt like, okay, this is someone I want to work with. Well, I got this nudge last week to reach out to him and work with him. So I reached out and spoke to this man and just knew it. My body just told me instantly, this is the person you need to work with. There was just no doubt. And it was super interesting because my brain immediately went into talking me out of it. And the way that I would work with this person is I would go, he lives on the opposite coast. He lives on the East Coast of the US. So I would need to go out there and spend 5 days there with him, which, as you can imagine, is quite expensive. I'm going to rephrase that. The cost of that is quite a bit more than the ways that I had envisioned working with a naturopathic doctor. Substantially more. And it was an amount that caused me great panic and anxiety to spend that much on my health. And that was part of my brain going into talking me out of it. And the part that I want to share with you that is just very interesting. So I was aware of the fact that I had spent this amount, this exact same amount. If you listen to a previous episode, you heard me talk about money and how I keep being also presented with options that are the exact same amount, one for my business and one for my health. There's a few other examples I did not share here out loud, but it's happened a number of times. And here it was again. The amount was the exact same amount that I had invested in my business when I first started. And I did that almost without thinking. Took out a loan, went into debt, whatever. Here I was presented with this opportunity to invest that much in my health. And I was like, no, I can't. And more interestingly, I felt guilt. I can't invest that much in myself. I need to have money for my kids. I need to have money for to invest in my financial future. I need to have money for unanticipated, expenses. And yet investing in my health felt like a waste. And I know I've mentioned this before as well. So doing the work that I do, I was able to see that I was spinning into resistance because I see it in potential clients all the time. And I could see, and I started asking questions. I started asking this healer, I'm like, can we get on another phone call? I sent him like a long message, like 12 minutes worth of me talking and asking questions. And then I stopped and I was like, whew, this is all head. This is your head spinning. This is your ego. This is the part of you that's going to die as a result of the transformation in working with this person. This is the part of you that's about to die that's freaking out because it doesn't want to die. It's that part of me that wants the comfort of staying with the old. I'd rather stay with the old than transform into something new because that's scary. So it's not conscious, right? What was happening for me consciously was logical reasons. I can't afford it. I have the cash, but I shouldn't spend it on this. I should spend it on something else. The guilt. Does this actually work? I reached out to somebody he's worked with and been like, can he actually help me? It's all logic. It was all mind and ego trying to override my gut. And my gut was such a huge, it was like screaming at me. Like, I don't know that it's ever been that loud. It was you don't have a choice. You have to do this. So I said yes. Immediately went into panic and anxiety. Luckily have a fantastic friend and colleague who was able to support me through that. And here's another part of it was the money piece was, do I believe in all the things that I teach? Because I believe that we can co-create anything that we want if our energetics are in the right place for it. That part is really important. Do I believe that I can co-create the money that's being asked in order for me to do something that I know I really need. And yeah, I do believe I can co-create that. I also believe that I'm worth investing in myself. Both of those took a minute. When I say a minute, about 24 hours of meditations and receiving from my friend, my colleague, Sacred Sandy. So if you're somebody looking for a practitioner to support you, Sacred Sandy is amazing. You can hear her in conversations that she and I have together in the other segment on this podcast. The other interesting part is that as soon as I said yes, and was an actual yes, because I said yes and then panicked, said yes to myself, then panicked and said no. When I actually said yes to the healer and I said, yes, I'm doing this, I immediately started feeling shifts. And perhaps I will share those shifts in another episode. They were quite large. And I want to leave that with you here, or leave this episode with this thought or this experience. That when you say yes to something, when you commit to something really and truly, everything starts shifting to align with that thing that you've now said yes to. And you will, I see this in my clients too, when they say yes to me, and almost immediately think, before we even have our first session, things start shifting. And I experienced that here, and I experienced it in a big way, probably because it's a big yes. It's a big yes. Financially, it's a big commitment financially. I know this healer operates on a very expansive level, and I immediately stepped into that expansion. I felt it, and a number of things shifted within myself and released and melted away. The magic started happening even before I'm going to go see him. So, the other really interesting thing about this whole process is that you may recall that I had listened to my intuition to pause in December and January. Now, part of that was I felt like I didn't have a choice because my body wasn't allowing me to do very much. Interesting, right? What our bodies are asking of us, our body knows. So who knows, maybe these symptoms would go away on their own. Maybe these symptoms are here because I needed to pause. I don't know. But I do know that energetically, intuitively, I was told to pause. I was wanting to come out with all kinds of programs and offers for y'all in January. In fact, I did make an offer in December, and it fell flat. It didn't move forward. And I'm working at like 50%, which is really, I was about to say is really scary because I'm my own provider. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh, that's not true, right? I have support all around me. On paper, on the 3D, I am the only one making money and supporting me, right? But ethereally, I already know that's not true. There's support all around me all the time. I don't need to worry about I'm the only one providing for myself. So I listened to that inner knowing of pause. So my schedule was very light in January. This healer's schedule was very light in January. He is traveling and things later on. I'm sure there's other times in the year I could work with him. This isn't my only opportunity. The point is, our schedules lined up really well. I'm going to go work with him before my move, before my friend comes to help me clean and organize. And even as I'm sharing this with you, I'm getting chills again. Because I know that working with this person, remember my intention, spirit team, please bring me a healing practitioner who can support me in restoring me to full health. And this is what this man does, according to the people he's worked with. on your physical body, but also on the consciousness level, on your spiritual level, all the levels. And I know that working with him is about shedding and releasing my past, not just my past, but the version of me that I have been operating under up until this point in my life. And I'm releasing that. And working with this man, I'm going to restructure myself physiologically and spiritually in order to support this new next phase of my life. So I get to do that. Then I get to come home and be supported in releasing my old self physically in my physical space through my friend decluttering and downsizing my home. And then after a physical, spiritual, psychological, biological clean out and upgrade, I get to move into my new space. It's so magical and so beautifully aligned that it takes my breath away. And I suspect I have this feeling that my restoration journey won't last 6 months, because I have a feeling that when all of this transpires and I move into my new place, I will be feeling much restored. It is still my intention to lead with flow, lead with rest, but I have a feeling it's going to look very different after the month of January. I have a feeling this podcast is going to change. We'll see what happens. But I want to leave you with trust your inner knowing. Slow down. You are not alone. You are fully supported in all things that are in alignment with your highest purpose.